The certified mail was waiting in the mailbox when I pulled into the driveway. It was late. I had just come back from Fort Carson after a long day of inventory audits and a meeting that ran over because someone couldn't read a spreadsheet. I was still in uniform. Maya was inside at the kitchen table coloring and humming to herself. I stood there for a second looking at the envelope. Certified mail usually means one of two things: government paperwork or bad news. Since I hadn't committed any crimes, and the IRS already knew where I lived, I had a feeling it wasn't a thank you note. I signed for it, shut the mailbox, and walked inside. Maya looked up. "Is that for us?" "It's for me," I said, keeping my voice steady. I opened it at the counter. It took maybe 10 seconds to read the first paragraph and understand what it was. Notice to quit. 30 days. I read it again, slower. The property owner was listed as Thomas and Linda Grant. My parents. The letter said my tenancy was being terminated. I had 30 days to vacate the premises. No accusations, no drama. Just clean, formal language. Maya slid off her chair and came closer. "Is something wrong?" I folded the paper once. "It's just paperwork." That wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. I had been living in that house for 5 years. After my divorce, my parents told me I could move in. It was an investment property they'd bought years ago. At the time, it felt like support. Stability for Maya. A place close to base. Close to her school. Close to everything that kept life manageable while I rebuilt mine. There was no lease. No rent agreement. I paid utilities. I handled repairs. I replaced a section of the fence after a windstorm. I installed a new garbage disposal myself because I didn't feel like waiting for a plumber. We had an email. One line that mattered: "Stay as long as you need." I still had it saved. Maya was watching my face now, studying it the way kids do when they know something adult is happening. "Are we moving?" she asked. There it was. Straight to the point. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the sink, turned on the water, rinsed out a coffee mug that didn't need rinsing. "It says we have 30 days, I said finally. She blinked. "Why?" That was a harder question. I told her to go finish her coloring and give me a minute. She didn't argue. She went back to the table, but she was quieter. I stepped into the hallway and called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. "You got it," she said, not asking. "I got it." A pause. "It's not personal," she added. "We always said it was temporary." Temporary. That word again. "It's been 5 years," I said. "Yes, and you've done well. You're stable. You're a captain. You can handle this." There it was. The compliment that lands like a push. "What changed?" I asked. Another pause. "Not long, but long enough. Rebecca needs a place," she said. "She's ready to buy her first home." I leaned against the wall. "And that's this house." "It makes sense," my mother replied. "It's a good location. Close to her office. You've had your time there." My time. I let that sit between us. "She just lost a bidding war," my mother continued. "This would solve everything." "Solve everything. For them, maybe." "So you're suing me," I said. "We had to file formally," she answered. "That's just how it works." "That's just how it works." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My phone buzzed almost immediately. "Rebecca, I hope you're not making this harder than it has to be," the text read. "It's just timing." Timing. I stared at the word for a while. Maya walked into the hallway holding her drawing. It was our house. The front door was purple in the picture, even though it was actually blue. There were 2 stick figures and a small dog we didn't own. "Is Aunt Rebecca taking my room?" she asked. I crouched down so we were eye level. "No one is taking anything tonight," I said. "We're still here." She nodded, but her shoulders stayed tight. After she went back to the table, I opened my laptop and searched Colorado eviction law. Tenancy at will. 30-day notice. If there's no lease, the owner can terminate the tenancy with proper notice. It wasn't complicated. They had followed procedure. I checked the calendar. 30 days from the date on the letter. That put us at the end of next month, right before the next school break. Convenient. I pulled up my old email and found the message from 5 years ago. My father had written it. Short and practical. "Move in. Stay as long as you need. We'll figure out the rest later. No end date, no conditions. Just trust." I printed it. Then I printed the notice to quit. I laid both pages on the kitchen table side by side. Maya walked over and looked at them like they were homework assignments. "Are those important?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "They are." She traced the edge of the paper with her finger. Did they forget we live here? She asked quietly. Kids have a way of asking the question adults avoid. I looked around the kitchen. The fridge with her art taped to it. The dent in the baseboard from when I dropped a toolbox. The scratch on the countertop that only I noticed. We live here, I said. That part hasn't changed. But something had. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Rebecca. The realtor might stop by next week to take measurements. Just giving you a heads up. Measurements. I set the phone down slowly. 30 days. My parents had filed to evict me so my sister could have her first home. And for the first time since opening that envelope, I felt something sharper than shock. Not anger. Not yet. Just clarity. Part 2. The email that said, "Stay as long as you need," and the family favoritism. I ignored word count 988. I slid both pages into a manila folder and set it on the counter like it was evidence. The house was quiet except for Maya's crayons moving back and forth. I stood there looking at the email again. 5 years ago didn't feel that long. It felt like yesterday, and a lifetime at the same time. When I moved in, I didn't see it as charity. I saw it as temporary stability. I had just finalized the divorce. I was a first lieutenant back then, working long hours and trying to prove I could handle command responsibilities without my personal life bleeding into it. My parents had called and said the investment property was empty. "It doesn't make sense for you to pay rent somewhere else," my dad said at the time. "Move in. Stay as long as you need." I remember sitting in my car outside my old apartment reading that email on my phone. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just calculated. Close to base. Good school district. No lease to negotiate. No deposits. It felt practical. I paid for utilities from the first month. I covered internet, trash, water. I handled small repairs without asking. When the back fence leaned after a windstorm, I didn't call my dad. I went to Home Depot. I told myself that mattered. That first winter, Rebecca came over for dinner. She walked through the living room slowly like she was touring a listing. "Must be nice," she said. "It's a house," I answered. "You didn't even have to qualify for a mortgage." There was always that edge in her voice when it came to money. Rebecca worked in real estate, which meant she talked about interest rates the way most people talk about the weather. She had been renting downtown, moving every year when the lease went up. I had never asked for details about her finances. It wasn't my business. Growing up, we had different roles. Rebecca needed things. I figured things out. She got help with down payments for cars. I signed up for ROTC to cover tuition. She called home when rent went up. I worked extra shifts on base. It wasn't dramatic. No one said one child was the favorite. It was subtler than that. Rebecca was the one who just needed a little support. I was the one who would be fine. 5 years in that house, I had built routines. Maya started kindergarten in that district. I planted tomatoes in the backyard. I repainted her bedroom after she decided she hated yellow. My parents came over for Thanksgiving twice. My mom brought store-bought pies and rearranged my kitchen drawers without asking. My dad checked the furnace like he still owned the place, which technically he did. I didn't mind. I understood the paperwork reality, but paperwork doesn't explain tone. About a year ago, Rebecca mentioned she wanted to buy her first home before turning 35. She said it at dinner like it was a milestone, a box to check. First home, she kept saying, like it was a title you earned. I asked if she was ready for a mortgage in this market. She rolled her eyes. Of course I am. I just need the right opportunity. Now I understood what she meant. I opened my phone and searched her name on the county property records site. Nothing new filed. No recent purchase. She must have been close. I called my father the next morning before PT. He answered in that calm, even tone he used when discussing business. "You saw the notice," he said. "I did. This isn't about pushing you out. It's about helping your sister. You could help her with a down payment somewhere else. This property makes sense. It's already ours." I tightened my grip on the phone. It's been my home for 5 years. It's always been temporary. There was no end date. He sighed. "Olivia, you're doing well. You're an Army officer. You'll land on your feet. Rebecca's situation is different." "Different how?" I didn't ask. I already knew the answer. "She just lost another house in a bidding war," he added. "This would give her stability." So that was it. The timing. Rebecca lost a bidding war. 2 weeks later, I received a 30-day notice. You could have talked to me, I said. We are talking. No, we weren't. We were rearranging reality to fit a decision that had already been made. After PT, I drove back home and found a card wedged into the front door. A realtor's business card. On the back in Rebecca's handwriting, call me when you're ready to coordinate showings. Showings. I stepped inside and closed the door slowly. Maya was at the kitchen table with her homework. Is Aunt Rebecca coming over? She asked. Not today. She nodded, but she kept looking toward the front window. I walked through the house with a new perspective. The living room felt smaller. The hallway narrower. Every corner suddenly looked temporary. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop again. I pulled up my bank statements from the last 5 years. Utilities paid every month. Repair expenses. Landscaping supplies. Not rent. I knew that mattered legally. Tenancy at will. No lease. Owner can terminate with notice. I wasn't naive about the law, but intent mattered too. That email "stay as long as you need" wasn't a contract. It was trust. And trust is harder to quantify in court. My phone buzzed again. Rebecca, Mom said you're upset. Please don't drag this out. It's just business. Business. That word did something to me. This wasn't business when I was scrubbing crayon off the walls. It wasn't business when I paid the water bill. It wasn't business when Maya lost her first tooth in that bathroom. But now it was business. I typed a reply and erased it 3 times before sending nothing. Instead, I opened my email and forwarded the original "stay as long as you need" message to a new folder labeled documentation. Then I started writing a timeline. Move-in date. Utilities transferred. Fence repair. Windstorm. Thanksgiving visits. Rebecca's bidding war. Facts, dates, no emotion. That's how you build a case. That's how you build a file. Maya pushed her math worksheet toward me. Can you check this? I looked at her numbers, corrected one subtraction error, and handed it back. Are we still going to school here next year? She asked without looking up. I didn't answer immediately. I could say yes and hope, or I could say I didn't know. I folded the manila folder closed and rested my hand on top of it. We're not done here, I said. I picked up the realtor's card and flipped it over again like the handwriting might change. Call me when you're ready to coordinate showings. Coordinate. That was generous. I checked the number. It belonged to a brokerage Rebecca had mentioned before. A firm that specialized in move-in-ready family homes. The kind of place with stock photos of smiling couples and golden retrievers. I set the card down and called Rebecca instead. She answered on the 4th ring. Hey, she said too light. Are you planning to list this house? It's not listing, she replied quickly. It's a transfer. Mom and Dad are just restructuring assets. Restructuring assets. She sounded like she was pitching a client. You're moving in, I said. That's the plan. When? As soon as it's available. Available. You mean when Maya and I leave? She exhaled. Olivia, don't make this dramatic. I leaned against the counter. You're asking me to leave my home so you can call it your first. It's not about you. That was honest, at least. She kept talking, words spilling faster now. You know how competitive this market is. I lost 2 houses in the last 3 months. Over-asking offers. Cash buyers. It's insane. This solves everything. It's a fair value transfer from Mom and Dad to me. It's not like they're throwing me a freebie. They're evicting me. They're ending a temporary arrangement. The phrasing matters to her. To all of them. This is business, she said again. You're stable. You have savings. You have a career. I'm trying to build something. I let that settle. You build something by buying it, I said. Not by taking it. She went quiet for a second. That's not what's happening. From where I was standing, it felt exactly like that. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and searched recent property transfers in the area. The county site was public. I found a pending pre-approval letter under Rebecca's name from a few months ago. Not enough for the current market, apparently. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was assessing. I drove to base the next morning and couldn't focus during the logistics briefing. Numbers on the screen blurred into each other. My mind kept returning to timelines. 2 failed bidding wars. 2 weeks later, a certified letter to me. Timing wasn't random. At lunch, I sat alone in my office and called my mother again. Rebecca told me the house will be transferred to her, I said. That's the idea, she replied. You could have talked to me first. We knew you'd resist. There it was. The assumption. We didn't want this to get emotional, she added. I almost laughed. You're evicting your daughter. We're reallocating property. Words were doing a lot of work in this family. Why this house? I asked. Why not help her somewhere else? It's close to her office, my mom said. It's already paid off. It keeps things simple. Simple for who? She needs a stable base, my mother continued. You understand that. You're in the army. That comparison hit differently. I've deployed twice, I said evenly. Stability for me wasn't a house handed over. It was orders and discipline. You chose that path. So did Rebecca. Just not in uniform. I ended the call before it turned into something neither of us could walk back. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a calendar invite. From Rebecca. Subject line property walkthrough. Proposed time Saturday at 10 a.m. I stared at it for a full minute before declining. A minute later, she texted. The realtor just needs measurements and photos. It won't take long. Measurements and photos. I looked around my office. Metal desk. Regulation bulletin board. A framed certificate from my last deployment. None of it was sentimental. All of it was earned. The house wasn't earned the same way, but it had been lived in. That evening, Rebecca showed up in person. I heard her car before I saw it. Maya was in the living room working on a school project about Colorado history. Rebecca knocked once and let herself in. We should set expectations, she said, stepping into the hallway like she already belonged there. This isn't a showing, I replied. It's not personal. I was starting to dislike that phrase. She walked through the living room, eyes scanning walls, floors, windows. You kept it in good shape, she said. That'll help. I followed her into the kitchen. It's not a listing, I reminded her. She turned to face me. For a second, the real estate tone dropped. You don't understand how hard this has been, she said. Every house I bid on, someone comes in with cash. Over asking. No contingencies. I'm stuck renting. I'm stuck explaining to clients why I don't even own. So this fixes your image. It gives me a start. At my expense. She crossed her arms. You'll be fine. There it was again. You'll be fine. Maya walked into the kitchen quietly holding a poster board. Aunt Rebecca, she said, polite but guarded. Rebecca smiled, softening instantly. Hey, kiddo. Are you moving here? Maya asked. Rebecca hesitated. Maybe. Maya looked at me instead. I held her gaze. No decisions are final, I said carefully. Rebecca picked up her bag. We're not trying to hurt you, she said at the door. I didn't respond. After she left, Maya sat at the kitchen table and drew a small X over the purple front door in her picture from yesterday. Why'd you do that? I asked. She shrugged. If it's not ours? I pulled the manila folder closer and added a new entry to the timeline. Date realtor contact initiated before vacancy. I wasn't building a case out of anger. I was building it because timing rarely lies. And something about the way they were moving quietly, confidently told me this had been planned long before that certified envelope hit my mailbox. I parked outside the legal assistance office before morning formation and sat in my car for a minute with the engine off. I had handled supply chain breakdowns overseas. I had coordinated convoy schedules across 3 time zones. I had briefed colonels without blinking. But walking into legal to explain that my own parents had filed to evict me felt different. Not because it was dramatic, because it was embarrassing. I adjusted my uniform, grabbed the manila folder, and went inside. The waiting room was quiet. A couple of junior enlisted soldiers sat flipping through paperwork, probably dealing with leases or car loans. I signed in and took a seat. When my name was called, I stepped into a small office where a civilian attorney in her 40s greeted me with a firm handshake. What can I help you with, Captain? She asked. My parents filed a notice to quit on the house I've been living in, I said plainly. No lease. 5 years. 30-day notice. She nodded once. Colorado. Yes. Tenancy at will, she said automatically. Do you pay rent? No. Utilities only. She leaned back in her chair. If there's no written lease and no rent agreement, they're within their rights to terminate with proper notice. I figured. Are they alleging non-payment or breach? No. She looked at me more closely now. What's the real issue? They want to transfer the property to my sister as her first home. The attorney didn't react emotionally. She didn't need to. Is there anything in writing about duration? She asked. I slid the printed email across her desk. She read it slowly. Stay as long as you need. That's it. She tapped the paper with her pen. This isn't a lease. But if you relied on this statement to your detriment, there could be an argument. It's not guaranteed. I'm not looking for guaranteed, I said. I'm looking for clarity. She gave a small half smile. That's realistic. We talked through the timeline. Move in after divorce. Utilities paid. Repairs handled. 5 years of occupancy. Any chance this turns hostile, she asked. It already is, she nodded. You need to disclose this to your chain of command if it results in a formal court filing. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because any legal action tied to your name can show up on background checks. Transparency protects you. I appreciated the directness. It's a civil matter, she added. An eviction isn't a criminal issue. It won't automatically affect your clearance, but financial instability can. Make sure you're current on all obligations. I am. She made a few notes. If this goes to court, bring documentation. Timeline, proof of utilities, that email. I almost laughed. I've already started. Of course you have. On the drive back to my office, I felt steadier. Not reassured. Just clearer. Procedure is calming, even when you're on the wrong side of it. I emailed my company commander requesting a brief private meeting. He closed the door once I stepped into his office. What's going on? He asked. My parents filed an eviction notice on the house I'm living in, I said. He blinked once, surprised but controlled. Are you at risk of being homeless? No, sir. Any financial misconduct? No. Then what do you need from me? Nothing operational. Just transparency. If it shows up in any background review during the promotion board cycle, I want it known that it's a family property dispute. He nodded slowly. Appreciate the heads up. That was it. No lecture. No judgment. Outside the building, the wind kicked up dust across the parking lot. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my mother, 1 from Rebecca. A text followed. We filed the complaint with the county court. It's just formal. Please don't escalate this. Formal. I opened the county court website and searched my name. Case filed. Plaintiff Thomas and Linda Grant. Defendant Olivia Grant. Hearing date scheduled. Seeing it in black and white did something different than holding the notice at my kitchen counter. This wasn't just a letter anymore. It was a docket number. That evening I found another card wedged under the front door. Same realtor. Different note this time. Buyer walkthrough requested prior to transfer. Please advise availability. Buyer. I took a picture of the card and added it to the folder. Maya was in the living room building something out of cardboard boxes. A fort, she called it. Can I bring this to the next house? She asked, without looking up. We don't know if there's a next house, I said. She stopped taping for a second. Are you going to court? Yes. Are they mad at you? I don't think this is about mad. She thought about that. Are you mad at them? I didn't answer right away. No, I said eventually. I'm focused. That was true. Later that night, I reviewed the court filing online. It was straightforward. Tenancy at will. Notice served. Possession requested if not vacated by deadline. No accusations, no character attacks. Just process. I scrolled to the hearing date again and added it to my calendar. Then I opened a new document and started outlining what I would say. No speeches, just facts. Move-in date. Utilities. Repairs. Email language. Sisters failed bids. Realtor contact before vacancy. Intent. That word kept coming back. If this had truly been temporary support, there would have been conversations. Warnings. A timeline discussed months in advance. Instead, there was a bidding war lost. Then a notice served. I closed the laptop and walked through the house one more time before bed. Maya's drawings were still taped to the fridge. Her sneakers were by the door. The hallway light flickered slightly when switched on something I had meant to fix. It didn't feel temporary. It felt lived in. My phone buzzed again on the nightstand. Rebecca, you're overthinking this. It's just business. The hearing will be quick. Quick! I turned the phone face down and turned off the lamp. In the dark, the house sounded the same as it always had. The furnace cycling. The faint hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Inside, everything had a deadline attached to it now. I circled the hearing date on the calendar with a black marker and counted backward. 27 days left. I don't panic under deadlines. The Army trains that out of you. You assess. You prioritize. You execute. But this wasn't a deployment schedule. It was my daughter's bedroom. The first showing request came that Saturday morning. I heard the knock before I saw the car. 2 sharp taps on the door, confident like someone who assumed they'd be let in. I opened it to find Rebecca standing next to a woman in a navy blazer holding a tablet. "This is just a walkthrough," Rebecca said quickly. "It won't take long." I declined the invite, I replied. The realtor offered a professional smile. "We just need measurements and photos for internal review." Internal review. "We're still living here," I said. "You can't schedule showings without my consent." Rebecca shifted her weight. "Mom and Dad own the property, and I'm the current occupant." There was a pause. The realtor looked between us, clearly aware she had walked into something that wasn't on the listing sheet. "It's okay," Rebecca said softly, like she was calming a child. "We'll work around you." That tone again. "Not today," I said. I closed the door before it turned into a sidewalk debate. Maya was standing halfway down the hallway watching. "Are they buying it now?" she asked. "No," I said. "Not today." She nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on the door for a few seconds longer than usual. The next few days blurred into a routine of work and documentation. At base, I kept my head down. I didn't bring it up unless someone asked. A couple of lieutenants joked about the housing market being brutal. I smiled and said nothing. At home, I started boxing things slowly. Not packing to leave. Packing to protect. Photo albums. Important documents. Maya's school certificates. I wasn't conceding, I was preparing. Rebecca texted again midweek. "We need access before the hearing. Buyers expect transparency." There was no buyer. There was just her. I didn't respond. Instead, I printed out the county case docket and added it to the folder. I highlighted the hearing date. I highlighted the plaintiff names. Thomas Grant. Linda Grant. My parents. That evening, Maya came home with a permission slip for a school field trip scheduled for 2 months out. "Can I go?" she asked. I looked at the date. 2 months. "Yes," I said, signing it. She hesitated. "Will we still live here then?" I kept my voice steady. "We're handling it." She studied my face like she was checking if that was a real answer. The following Friday, I came home to find Rebecca's car in the driveway. My chest tightened, but I didn't slow down. She was inside the living room with her phone out taking photos. "Are you serious?" I asked. She turned startled. "I used the spare key." I stared at her. "You don't have permission to be here. It's Mom and Dad's house. It's my residence." She lowered the phone slowly. "This isn't illegal," she said. "I'm not stealing anything. You're staging it. I'm documenting it. For your transfer." She didn't deny it. Maya walked in from the kitchen, eyes wide. "Aunt Rebecca, why are you taking pictures of my room?" Rebecca crouched down to her level. "Just checking something." "Checking what?" She hesitated. I stepped forward. "Rebecca, leave." Her jaw tightened. For a second, I saw something other than real estate polish. I saw frustration. "You think you're the only one who works hard?" she said quietly. "You think just because you wear a uniform you're untouchable. This has nothing to do with my job." "It has everything to do with it," she snapped. "You always act like you're above this. Above us." That caught me off guard. "I moved in because Mom and Dad offered," I said evenly. "Not because I demanded it. They offered because you needed help. So do you." She stood up abruptly. "I'm building something. So am I." She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "You're dragging this into court over nothing," she said over her shoulder. "The judge is going to see this for what it is." "And what is that?" "A simple property decision." The door closed behind her. Maya stood very still in the hallway. "Why is she mad?" she asked. "She's stressed," I said. "About what?" I didn't answer that. Instead, I walked back into the living room and checked what she had photographed. She hadn't touched anything. She hadn't moved furniture. But the feeling lingered. Someone else had started treating this house like it was already theirs. That night, I updated the timeline again. Date unauthorized entry using spare key. I wrote it without emotion. At base the next day, my commander pulled me aside. "Heard you've got a court date coming up," he said casually. "Yes, sir." "Everything's squared away." "Yes, sir." He nodded once. "Handle it?" I appreciated that. No extra commentary, no pity. On the drive home, I passed 3 for sale signs within 2 blocks. Open house banners flapping in the wind. The market was aggressive. Rebecca wasn't wrong about that. But markets don't justify tactics. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always. Blue door, small front yard, the dent in the mailbox post from when I backed into it 2 winters ago. Inside, Maya had taped her updated drawing back onto the fridge. The purple door was back. She looked up at me from the table. "Are they coming back?" she asked. "Not tonight," I said. She nodded, then went back to her homework. I checked the calendar again. 19 days left. I adjusted the collar of my uniform in the reflection of the courthouse window before stepping inside. I had debated wearing civilian clothes. Legal assistants told me it didn't matter. This was a civil matter. The judge wouldn't care what I wore. I cared. Not because I thought the uniform would intimidate anyone. It wouldn't. But it reminded me to stand straight, to speak clearly, to stick to facts. Maya walked beside me, holding my hand. She wore a blue sweater and black flats. She had asked if court meant we were in trouble. I told her no. Court meant people sorted things out. The courthouse smelled like old paper and disinfectant. Beige walls, fluorescent lighting. People sitting on wooden benches looking like they hadn't slept much. My parents were already there. They stood together near the back wall, my father in a gray blazer, my mother holding a leather folder. Rebecca stood slightly apart, scrolling through her phone. No one waved. My father gave a small nod when he saw me. Not warm, not cold. Just acknowledgement. We sat 2 rows behind them. Maya swung her feet carefully, not letting her shoes touch the floor. "Are we going to talk to the judge?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. She nodded like that made sense. Their attorney arrived a few minutes later. Mid-40s, confident, briefcase organized. He shook my parents' hands, then glanced at me briefly as if measuring. When our case was called, we stood. I stepped forward with the manila folder under my arm. The courtroom itself was smaller than I expected. No dramatic wood paneling. Just a raised bench, state seal behind it, and a judge who looked like he'd seen thousands of disputes that all claimed to be unique. He glanced at the file. Plaintiffs seek possession of property under tenancy at will. 30-day notice served. Defendant remains in residence. His voice was calm, neutral. The attorney spoke first. He outlined the facts cleanly. No written lease. No rent agreement. Property owned by Thomas and Linda Grant. Notice properly served. Defendant has not vacated. He added something else. Captain Grant is gainfully employed, financially stable, and capable of securing alternative housing. I kept my face neutral. It wasn't an attack. It was positioning. The judge looked at me. "Captain Grant, do you dispute ownership?" "No, Your Honor." "Do you dispute receipt of notice?" "No, Your Honor." "Then what is your argument?" I opened the folder and placed the printed email on the podium. 5 years ago, I moved in after my divorce at my parents' request. This email stated I could stay as long as I needed. I relied on that statement in establishing long-term residence. The judge read the line quietly. "Stay as long as you need." "Yes, Your Honor." The attorney responded immediately. "That is not a lease, Your Honor. It is informal language between family members. There was no defined duration, no rent, no contractual obligation." He wasn't wrong. The judge leaned back slightly. "Colorado law allows termination of tenancy at will with proper notice," he said evenly. "The court does not generally enforce informal family understandings absent clear contractual terms." My shoulders loosened slightly. This was going the way I expected. Maya shifted beside me but stayed quiet. The judge asked a few clarifying questions. "Have you paid rent?" "No, Your Honor." "Have plaintiffs alleged breach or non-payment?" "No, Your Honor." "Is there any written extension of occupancy?" "No." Each answer narrowed the path. The attorney spoke again. "The plaintiffs wish to transfer the property to their other daughter as her primary residence. There is no malicious intent. Simply a family property decision." Malicious intent. That word lingered. The judge nodded once. "Eviction proceedings are not punitive. They determine possession." Possession. The room felt smaller. My father avoided eye contact. Rebecca watched the exchange with her arms crossed. The judge looked down at his notes. "Unless there is evidence of misrepresentation or statutory violation, the court is inclined to grant possession based on proper notice." Inclined. I heard Maya inhale softly beside me. The judge continued. "Captain Grant, I understand this is difficult, but the court is bound by statute." I nodded once. "I understand, Your Honor." It wasn't defeat. It was realism. He shuffled the papers slightly. "I am prepared to rule." A small movement at my side interrupted him. Maya's hand was raised. Not high. Just enough to be seen. The judge paused mid-sentence and looked over his glasses. "Yes." Maya swallowed. "Can I ask something?" The courtroom went still. I felt heat rise in my chest. The attorney glanced at my parents. My mother's posture stiffened. The judge studied her for a moment. "Who are you?" he asked gently. My name is Maya Grant, she said. I'm 7. He looked at me. I gave a small nod. I hadn't coached her. I didn't know what she was about to say. The judge leaned forward slightly. What would you like to ask? Maya held her tablet tightly against her chest. Can I show you something, she said. The attorney shifted in place. Your Honor, he began. The judge raised a hand, silencing him without looking. What is it? He asked her. She looked at me briefly. Something Mom doesn't know I recorded. My stomach dropped. I hadn't known she recorded anything. The judge hesitated just long enough for the air in the room to feel thinner. Then he nodded once. Show me. Part 7. The judge explained tenancy law, and I thought I was about to lose word count 1028. My fingers tightened around the edge of the podium as Maya stepped forward. She walked slowly like she was carrying something fragile. The tablet was gripped in both hands. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. I had not prepared for this. The judge motioned for her to approach the rail separating us from the bench. The bailiff shifted slightly but didn't intervene. What is it you want to show me? The judge asked. Maya looked up at him, then down at the screen. It's just something I recorded, she said, when they were talking. The attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, we object to. On what basis? The judge asked calmly. There has been no foundation laid. We don't know what this is. The judge glanced at me. Captain Grant, were you aware of this recording? No, Your Honor. That was the truth. He looked back at Maya. Were you present when this was recorded? She nodded. I was at the table, drawing. Was anyone else there? Grandma. Grandpa. Aunt Rebecca. The judge sat back slightly. Colorado is a one-party consent state. I knew that from my late-night reading earlier in the week. If Maya was present during the conversation, the recording wasn't automatically illegal. The judge seemed to be thinking along the same lines. He looked at the attorney. We'll allow it for limited review. I'll determine relevance. The room was silent. Maya tapped the screen. For a second, nothing happened. Then voices filled the courtroom. My mother's voice came first, clear, casual. Let her think it's open-ended. My stomach tightened. There was a rustle in the courtroom. The judge leaned forward slightly. My father's voice followed, lower, measured. We just need her there until Rebecca's financing closes. Rebecca's face went pale. The recording wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no insults, just logistics. My mother again. Once it's official, she won't have a choice. A pause. Then my father. Courts care about intent. As long as we follow the notice rules, we're covered. The word covered echoed harder than anything else. Maya stopped the recording and looked up at the judge. That's it, she said quietly. No performance, no speech, just facts. The courtroom stayed still for a long moment. The attorney stepped forward quickly. Your Honor, context is critical. We don't know the full scope of this conversation. This could be taken out of The judge raised his hand again. I heard what I heard. He turned to my parents. Did you have discussions regarding the timing of this notice in relation to your other daughter's financing? My father adjusted his jacket. We discussed family planning, yes. Did you represent to the defendant that she could remain indefinitely? It was informal language, he replied carefully. We never intended permanence. The judge tapped the bench lightly with his pen. Intent matters, he said evenly. The same word my father had used. The attorney shifted strategy. Your Honor. Even if timing was discussed, the plaintiffs retained the legal right to terminate tenancy at will. That may be, the judge said. But misrepresentation and reliance are separate considerations. He looked down at the file again. Captain Grant. He said, did you make long-term life decisions based on the understanding you could remain in this residence? Yes, Your Honor. Such as school enrollment, stability for my daughter, repair investments. I did not pursue alternative housing based on the expectation of continued occupancy. The judge nodded once. The attorney interjected. There was no contract guaranteeing duration. No, the judge replied calmly. But there may have been an understanding relied upon. The temperature in the room felt different now. Not warmer, just heavier. Rebecca stared at the floor. My mother's hands were clasped tightly together. The judge looked at Maya again. How old are you? 7. He gave a small nod. Thank you for bringing that forward. She walked back toward me, expression serious. I placed my hand lightly on her shoulder. The judge leaned back in his chair. This court does not operate on emotion, he said evenly. It operates on statute. However, evidence suggesting bad faith or intentional misrepresentation may alter the scope of this proceeding. Bad faith. The phrase landed like a weight. The attorney spoke again, more cautiously this time. Your Honor, if there are concerns regarding misrepresentation, we request opportunity to review the recording and respond formally. That is reasonable, the judge said. He looked down at the docket. I am not prepared to issue a final ruling today. The room exhaled collectively. Instead, this matter will be continued pending evidentiary review and referral to mediation. My father's head snapped slightly toward the attorney. The attorney whispered something to him quickly. The judge continued. If it is determined that representations were made and relied upon in bad faith, this court will consider that in assessing possession. He looked at me directly. Captain Grant, you will remain in the property pending further review. Remain. It wasn't victory, but it wasn't eviction. The gavel didn't slam. He simply moved to the next case. Just like that. The courtroom noise resumed in low murmurs. My parents stood slowly. Rebecca avoided my eyes. Maya looked up at me. Did I do something wrong? She asked quietly. No, I said. You told the truth. She nodded once, like that was enough. The attorney approached my parents with quick, urgent movements. I gathered the folder calmly. No celebration. No relief big enough to show on my face. Just adjustment. Outside the courthouse, the air felt sharper. My mother walked past me without speaking. Rebecca slowed near the steps. You didn't have to do that, she said under her breath. I didn't respond. I took Maya's hand and walked to the car. The hearing wasn't over, but it wasn't simple anymore either. Part 8. The recording that changed the eviction case against my parents. Word count, 1,026. The mediation notice arrived 3 days later. I opened the envelope at the kitchen counter while Maya worked on spelling words. The hearing had been continued pending evidentiary review, and now both parties were ordered to attend mediation before returning to court. Not a victory, not a dismissal. A shift. I read the document carefully. Date scheduled for the following week. Neutral mediator assigned. Both sides required to bring documentation. I added it to the folder. My phone rang that afternoon. My father. I let it go to voicemail. A text followed instead. We need to talk like adults. That part almost made me laugh. I had been the only adult in the room for most of this. Mediation took place in a small office building downtown. No courtroom. No elevated bench. Just a rectangular table and a woman in her 50s with reading glasses and a legal pad. Rebecca sat next to my parents. Their attorney sat slightly angled, already organized. I took a seat opposite them, folder in front of me. The mediator introduced herself, explained the process, and made it clear this was confidential. No grand speeches, no theatrics. Let's start with goals, she said. What do you want? My father spoke first. We want possession of the property. The mediator looked at me. I want stability for my daughter, I said. Rebecca shifted. I just want to move forward with my life. No one mentioned fairness. The mediator nodded slowly. Let's address the recording. The attorney jumped in. We believe the recording lacks context. Family discussions about timing are not proof of bad faith. The mediator turned to my parents. Did you intentionally delay notice until your other daughter's financing was ready? Silence. My mother spoke carefully. We wanted to minimize disruption. To whom the mediator asked. No answer. I slid the printed email across the table. This was the understanding I relied on, I said. 5 years of occupancy based on that representation. The mediator read it. Did you ever clarify duration? She asked my parents. No, my father admitted. Did you discuss reclaiming the property prior to the bidding war losses? She asked. No. Timing again. Rebecca leaned forward. You're making it sound like a conspiracy, she said. It was just practical. Practical for you, I replied evenly. The mediator raised a hand slightly, keeping it measured. Let's talk options, she said. They proposed a 60-day extension. 60 days to uproot Maya mid-school year. No, I said. Rebecca's jaw tightened. You're dragging this out, she said. I'm asking for the school year, I replied. My mother inhaled sharply. That's unreasonable. It's 9 months. It's too long. The mediator leaned back. Captain Grant. Why is the school year critical? Because my daughter deserves stability, I said. She didn't choose this. Maya wasn't in the room, but her presence was. The mediator turned to my parents. Is the transfer contingent on immediate occupancy? Rebecca answered before they could. My financing window is tight. There it is, I said. The mediator's pen paused mid-note. Explain, she said. Rebecca hesitated. The rate lock expires in 4 months. 4 months. Not immediate. The mediator did the math out loud. If occupancy transfers at the end of the school year, is the financing still viable? Rebecca looked at the attorney. He nodded slightly. Potentially, yes. Potentially. The mediator folded her hands. It seems there is room for compromise. My father rubbed his forehead. This has gotten out of proportion, he said quietly. It had. But not because of me. The conversation stretched for over an hour. Numbers, dates, mortgage terms, emotional landmines disguised as practical concerns. Finally, the mediator leaned forward. Here's a structured proposal, she said. Defendant remains in the property through the end of the current academic year. Plaintiffs retain ownership and schedule transfer effective 30 days after that date. No further interference or access prior to agreed transition. My mother looked at Rebecca. Rebecca looked at the attorney. He whispered something to her. My father stared at the table. This avoids extended litigation, the mediator added. It preserves financing timelines and minimizes disruption to a minor child. No one spoke for several seconds. I kept my expression neutral. Rebecca exhaled sharply. Fine, she said. My mother looked at me. You won't fight us after that, she asked. I won't, I said. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't need to. The agreement was drafted. Signed, filed. No apologies, no hugs, just signatures. Outside the building, Rebecca stopped beside her car. You embarrassed us, she said quietly. No, I replied. You embarrassed yourselves. She shook her head and drove off. My parents didn't linger. I walked to my car and sat for a moment before starting the engine. Not relief, not triumph, just recalibration. When I got home, Maya was at the kitchen table again. Are we moving? She asked. At the end of the school year, I said. She nodded slowly. So I can finish second grade here. Yes. She seemed to weigh that carefully. Okay, she said. No celebration. No dramatic reaction. Just acceptance. That evening I emailed my commander to confirm the mediation outcome. Transparency matters. A few months later, promotion board results were released. I was selected for major. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning between routine logistics updates. No fanfare, no confetti. I read it twice to make sure. The eviction case had not defined me. The mediation agreement held. Rebecca secured her financing. My parents stopped calling as often. When they did, the tone had shifted. Less certain. More measured. The house still looked the same from the outside. Blue door. Small yard. Familiar driveway. Maya taped her latest drawing to the fridge. The purple door remained. At a red light one afternoon, she stared out the window and said quietly, I don't like when they talk about us like it's not our home. I kept my eyes on the road. I don't either, I said. The light turned green. I pressed the gas. Part 9. Mediation. My sister's first home and the boundary I set after it all. Word count 1014. I changed the locks the week after mediation. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. The agreement said no further access prior to the agreed transition date. That meant no spare keys floating around. No surprise walkthroughs. No quick measurements. I hired a locksmith and paid cash. When Maya came home from school and saw the small metal shavings on the porch, she asked what happened. Just updating security, I said. She nodded like that made sense. Life didn't stop after mediation. It just recalibrated. Rebecca stopped sending realtor texts. The brokerage business card disappeared from the door. There were no more surprise visits. But the distance remained. My parents called once a week at first, then every other week. Conversations stayed on neutral topics. Weather, school, my work schedule. No one mentioned the recording. No one mentioned court. They didn't have to. The agreement was filed with the court. The continued hearing was closed upon confirmation of settlement. No eviction judgment entered. No formal possession order issued. On paper it looked procedural. In reality, it had shifted something deeper. At base, promotion results were officially posted. My name was on the list. Major, 12 years in uniform, 2 deployments, a logistics battalion that ran smoothly under pressure. The promotion had nothing to do with my parents. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't symbolic. But when I saw it, I felt something settle inside me. Not validation. Alignment. I emailed my commander a simple thank you. He replied with well-deserved. That was enough. Rebecca's financing closed in early spring. I found out through my mother, who mentioned it casually over the phone. She locked in a good rate, my mom said. That's good, I replied. She's excited. I'm sure she is. There was a pause. You didn't have to bring that recording into court, my mother said quietly. I didn't react immediately. I didn't bring it, I said. Maya did. Another pause. We were trying to manage timing, she said. You were managing leverage. Silence stretched across the line. We didn't think you'd fight it, she admitted. There it was. I wasn't supposed to fight it. I was supposed to absorb it, like I always had. You taught me to follow process, I said calmly. That's all I did. She didn't argue with that. As the end of the school year approached, I began packing more deliberately. Not defensive packing, transitional packing. Maya labeled her boxes in big block letters. Books, art, important stuff. She left the drawing with the purple door taped to the fridge until the last week. The house felt different once we started moving furniture. Not emptier, more honest. On the final walkthrough day, Rebecca arrived alone. No realtor, no attorney. She stood in the living room and looked around quietly. You kept it in good shape, she said. I live here, I replied. She nodded. I didn't expect it to go that far, she said after a moment. Neither did I. She shifted her weight. I didn't think you'd see it as personal. I almost smiled. It was. She didn't argue. We walked through this house together once. No measuring, no photographing, just acknowledgement. At the door, she hesitated. I hope you know I wasn't trying to hurt Maya. I know, I said. But you did. She looked down at the porch. I just wanted my first home, she said. And now you have it. That was the truth. Maya hugged her briefly before we left. Kids don't carry grudges the way adults do. We loaded the last box into the car. I took one final look at the blue door. It was just a door. What mattered was who walked through it. We moved into a smaller rental closer to base. Not as big, not as quiet, but ours. Signed lease. Clear terms. Defined duration. No ambiguity. A week later, I received an invitation to Rebecca's small housewarming gathering. I declined. Not dramatically. Just a polite no. My mother called after. You could have come, she said. I could have, I agreed. But I'm choosing something different. She didn't press. At work, my new rank insignia felt heavier on my collar for the first few days. Not physically, mentally. I had navigated a family lawsuit without losing my footing. I had stayed within the law. I had protected my daughter's stability for as long as possible, and I had drawn a line. One evening, as I was helping Maya unpack in her new room, she held up the purple door drawing again. Should I change it? She asked. Change what? The door color. I looked at the paper. No, I said. You can keep it how you like. She taped it to the new wall. The purple door stayed. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. Closing went through. It's official. I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Congratulations. That was it. No sarcasm. No bitterness. Just acknowledgement. I set the phone down and turned off the lamp. The new house made different sounds at night. Different pipes. Different airflow. Maya slept through it. So did I. Part 10. What changed after my parents tried to evict me? Word count 1027. I stood in the driveway of the rental and watched Maya ride her bike in slow circles. The neighborhood wasn't as polished as the old one. Smaller yards, closer houses. But the lease was clear. 12 months. Signed by me. No footnotes about as long as you need. The first week felt strange. Different kitchen layout. Different light through the windows. But the routine stayed the same. School drop-off. PT briefings. Homework at the table. Stability doesn't come from square footage. It comes from predictability. Rebecca's housewarming photos showed up on social media before I muted the app. Blue door repainted white. Living room staged with a home sweet home sign over the couch. First home achieved. My mother called 2 days later. She's settling in, she said. I'm glad, I replied. You could come by sometime. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Another pause. We never meant to make you feel disposable, she said quietly. That word hung heavier than eviction. I wasn't disposable, I said. I just wasn't prioritized. She didn't argue. We talked about Maya's school schedule instead. The calls became shorter after that. At base, my promotion to major came with new responsibilities. More oversight. More people relying on my decisions. One afternoon, a young lieutenant knocked on my office door. Ma'am, do you have a minute? He asked. Come in. He closed the door behind him. I'm dealing with a landlord dispute, he said. Lease confusion. I don't want it affecting my record. I listened, asked a few questions, and directed him to legal assistance. Keep documentation. Follow process. Don't escalate emotionally. It felt familiar. The house on Maple Street transferred fully to Rebecca's name by early summer. I knew because the county site updated the deed record. Old habits. I didn't drive by. There was no reason to. Maya adjusted to the rental quickly. She made a new friend down the street. She found the best hiding spot in the backyard for her cardboard fort. One evening while I was cooking, she leaned against the counter and asked, "Are Grandma and Grandpa still mad?" "I don't think so," I said. "Then why don't we see them?" "Because sometimes people need space." She considered that. "Did I make them mad?" "No," I said firmly. "You told the truth." She nodded slowly like she was filing that away. The first time my parents visited the rental, they knocked. They waited. That alone was new. My mother brought a casserole. My father looked around quietly. "It's smaller," he said. "It's ours," I replied. He nodded once. No one mentioned the house on Maple Street. We sat at the kitchen table and talked about neutral things. Work, school, weather. When they left, my mother hugged Maya longer than usual. In the months that followed, boundaries stayed in place. No spare keys exchanged. No financial entanglements. No informal agreements. If something needed to be said, it was said clearly. Rebecca and I saw each other at a family barbecue late that summer. Her new house came up in conversation with other relatives. "It's beautiful," someone said. She smiled. "Thank you." She met my eyes briefly across the yard. No tension, no warmth, just recognition. Later, while kids played near the fence, she approached me. "You handled that differently than I expected," she said. "How did you expect me to handle it?" She shrugged, louder. I almost smiled. "That's not my style." She nodded slowly. "I didn't think about how it looked," she admitted. "From your side." "You didn't need to," I said. "The court did." That was enough. We didn't become close. We didn't repair anything dramatic. We adjusted. One afternoon, months after everything settled, Maya and I were driving home from school when we passed a row of for sale signs again. She watched them quietly. "Are we ever going to buy a house?" she asked. "Eventually," I said. "When it makes sense. Not because someone else wants it. Not because someone else wants it." She nodded, satisfied. At a red light, she turned to me. "I still like the purple door," she said. "You can paint any door you want someday." The light changed. I drove forward steady. The eviction notice didn't define us. The courtroom didn't define us. The recording didn't define us. What defined us was what we did after. We followed process. We set boundaries. We moved forward without pretending nothing happened. Some families explode. Some collapse. Ours recalibrated. Not perfect, not close, but clearer. When I tucked Maya into bed that night, she asked, "Are we safe here?" "Yes," I said. That answer didn't require explanation. Downstairs, I reviewed next week's training schedule and set my alarm for 0500. The house creaked differently than the old one. Different pipes. Different rhythm. Still steady. And for the first time in months, there was no deadline attached to the walls, closing reflection. I used to think strength meant not needing anyone. Then I learned it actually means knowing when to draw a line. My parents tried to evict me so my sister could have her first home. On paper, it was a property decision. In reality, it was a test of boundaries. The courtroom didn't give me revenge. It gave me clarity. My 7-year-old didn't win the case for me. She reminded everyone that intent matters, that words matter, that temporary doesn't erase 5 years of living somewhere. Family drama doesn't always end with apologies. Sometimes it ends with structure, with paperwork, with a signed lease that leaves no room for interpretation. And sometimes the strongest move in a family revenge story isn't tearing something down. It's building your own stability instead. If stories like this speak to you, real family drama, real courtroom battles, real military discipline under pressure, make sure you subscribe. This channel is built around family revenge stories that stay grounded in reality. No fantasy, no exaggerated drama, just real decisions, real consequences, and the quiet kind of strength most people don't see coming.